Thank you for watching my final assignment on presenting a proposal to modify a paramedic practice. As part of this unit, I engaged in volunteering with my local YMCA, a community-minded organisation primarily dedicated to providing services that foster the health and welfare of various members of the community. I was able to assist with classes for the disabled youths of the community and develop an understanding of what programs that are actually available to this group. Further to that, I was actually also able to gain a contrasting perspective by participating in group fitness activities with elderly members of the community and after-school programs for school children. In this video, I aim to discuss why my chosen group is considered a vulnerable demographic, why it is in need of further attention with regards to patient-centred care, and then from this, I will then outline a proposal that aims to modify paramedic practice to better enhance that patient care, as well as discuss the potential impacts of such a change and how this proposal should be implemented. There are many studies out there that provide strong argument to suggest that teaching, all types of demographics, but particularly children and disabled people, that healthy living and equipping them with the tools that they need to maintain that active lifestyle can significantly reduce health concerns later in life, therefore reducing the overall impact that these populations may have on the greater healthcare system. By ensuring those healthy habits are established early in life, there is a greater chance that these people will grow into physically active adults. The YMCA in particular puts a great emphasis on providing facilities in which all members of the community can learn how to live and maintain that healthy lifestyle. There are also many global circumstances in recent events in which current processes have been detrimental to the health and well-being of disabled populations. For example, in New Zealand, after the Christchurch earthquakes, it was found that emergency evacuation procedures for disabled populations was lacking, as was followed up news reports. Parents reported disabled children in particular were having trouble readjusting and were consistently unsettled, and they believed this was due to both the unexpected nature of the emergency and the change in routine, as well as not being adequately prepared. Another one is after Hurricane Katrina in the United States, disabled members of the community were displaced, turned away from relief centres because organisers had not really accounted for them and did not have the appropriate facilities to provide the aid that was needed. And further analysis found that evacuation processes were also lacking in the access and egress to the pickup points. Disabled people don't always necessarily have the ability to physically get to the evacuation points, and as a result there are now many information resources available to aid these populations to identify what they need, but again this was reactionary rather than a preparation before the actual event. My proposal to change a paramedic practice focuses more on prevention rather than reaction to events. When the disabled, elderly, or children require emergency care, whether it be in the event of a major disaster or on a more local individual basis, the care provided to them is generally reactionary to whatever situation has arisen. My proposal aims to educate these demographics before that emergency onset so as to better prepare them and the paramedics for the events to follow. Further to this, I think from the paramedics' perspective, it's good to have a bit more of a reconnect with the audience that they are attending. Rather than, trying to invent the wheel, I'd like to take current paramedic practice and turn it into an educational tool for the general public with the intent of bridging that gap between community groups and the emergency services. I'd like to see better education around what constitutes an emergency, what the patient can expect when somebody dials 000, and how patients and bystanders can better prepare themselves to assist their counterparts, their friends, and the paramedics when they arrive on scene. On the other hand, I believe that paramedics need to work to eliminate some of that disconnect, as I mentioned, and bias that comes from attending jobs viewed as, non-emergency, and reconnect with that community that they're out to assist. I think there's times that if it's not a code 1, there seems to be at times an attitude that you see on road in placements that believes that the job shouldn't have come to them, or they don't actually need emergency care. So it would be good to reconnect that rapport between paramedics and these patients that obviously need assistance. My plan is to develop a series of interactive workshops where practicing paramedics volunteer to deliver these to the community groups. This will not be just a one-off event, but a regular lesson delivered 3 to 4 times a year, not just to ensure that the lessons are retained, but that connection between paramedics and the community are maintained and strengthened. One of my strongest memories as a kid was having the fire brigade to turn up to our school once a year to go through fire safety, and having been raised in a rural country town prone to bushfires. Not only were these lessons integral, but it helped everybody gain an understanding of what to do, how to make everybody around them's lives easier in the event that a fire broke out in the community. So what I would like to do is take something like that and reapply it to a paramedic setting. Each lesson will focus on teaching people what to do in the event of the emergency, what information is really good to have at hand, allow the members of the community group to practice basic first aid that is focused on their skill set and what they're able to achieve, so that if they are unable to provide this, they're familiar with the processes and more likely to remain calm as well. I believe the potential impacts for this proposal could be far-reaching into the community, with a number of stakeholders being affected in primarily a really positive way. First and foremost, the disabled members of the community, my group. So not only would they be gaining valuable emergency information, but they will be receiving it from the actual people that are sent there to assist them. That level of trust and rapport that can sometimes be difficult to establish, particularly with some patients that do have that mental disability. That foundation will have already been laid, so that can only be, a positive element to set that experience up for that patient, to be able to focus exactly on what they need. Then there's also the paramedics. As I mentioned previously, that disconnect with the community that can sometimes be seen on road these days has the potential to be reevaluated and rebuilt. It would also allow paramedics that opportunity to build the professional reputation that they want the community to perceive, and also gain an insight into how that community is receiving them, how they're being portrayed, or how they're being accepted by the people that they're actually out there to assist and provide care for. There's also the wider community in general, not just the disabled members. As I mentioned, I was able to spend time with elderly people, other children in after-school care programs, and also with the staff that were running these programs as well. And in one conversation with a staff member, he told me of an initiative at another centre that was struggling to get off the ground. So the program involved providing education and support for diabetics in low socioeconomic circumstances. So the biggest obstacle preventing them success was that lack of awareness in the program due to limited funds and stipulations that people attending that program had to be recommended through their GP or through community help organisations to ensure that the people attending it were the intended target group, pretty much. So it made me think that by having paramedics attend these centres on a regular basis and cultivate that relationship, not just with the members but with the staff, this could then open doors for further healthcare or educational opportunities within that community. And within the other people that attend, especially with organisations such as the YMCA, that it doesn't just cater for the programs that they promote. It allows other community groups and other cultural organisations to come and have their days as well, and what they want to get out of it. It provides that space for them to do so. Another impact would be on the actual healthcare system. So the change that providing these educational tools could be is the education to community members about what to expect at each level. So it allows that process to run a lot smoother at each step along the way, and with as much information about that patient as possible to allow the health care workers to provide that best level of care for that specific patient. The wait times could be decreased as people tend to visit their GPs rather than the emergency department for situations that are non-life-threatening, or that are able to be resolved on scene as well. There could also be really positive financial impacts. So by having it as a volunteering program for paramedics to do, it could be a professional development tool. So those impacts are lessened, and the value obtained for paramedics is experience to add to their own career progression. So I think out of all of these impacts that could be had, it's pretty positive. There's not really a negative element of providing education to the public around what to expect. In planning the implementation and viability of any plan, and particularly that which involves the special needs population, it's essential to include representatives of that population in the prior planning before creating and commencing these educational workshops that my proposal revolves around. My plan includes the ambulance service meeting with these community groups just to gain that deeper understanding of the level of information required. There would be a base program created that can be then altered to the specific needs of the group. For example, a basic structure of the lessons, of the practical applications that it can provide, that can then be added to, simplified and modified wherever needed. Due to the increased vulnerability of these particular community groups, key stakeholders or experts that work closely with these groups would be better able to provide that insight into the challenges that may arise or preparations that would need to be adjusted for whichever reason. From there, paramedics from each branch would then have the opportunity to run these sessions with their local facility, much like the YMCA, and each and every community and suburb has so many out there if you really start looking. And they would then become that representative for that workshop day. As mentioned in the impacts, it would go towards their professional development, career progression, as well as allowing them just to connect with the community really and become part of what they're out there to help. The information packs could be provided as well to participants that include anything from pamphlets from what to do in an emergency to hands-on practical lessons that allows those participants to engage with the learnings and solidify the information that's being provided to them. I would also like the parents or family members of the disabled members of the community to attend these sessions where possible, just to ensure that the lessons learned within that program or that day are taken home and reiterated within the family unit. Repetition is essential to building those strong foundations of any lesson and long-term plan. So, which is why that my plan involves these community day workshops to be anything from annual to 2 to 3 times per year. Again, depending on the needs of the specific population and the level of information and care that they would need. To begin with, I would also like these workshops just to remain with the vulnerable populations of the disabled members of the community, and if successful, they can then be added to schools, primary schools, much like my before mentioned experience with the fire departments as a kid coming to visit the school in their truck. And they can then actually be passed on across other vulnerable populations to ensure that the wider community is included and the lessons that are being sent out into the world by ambulance are standard and uniform, and everybody knows exactly what's going on. The whole idea of my proposal was to try and bridge the gaps and reconnect any, distance between what's happening in paramedic practice, how they are connecting with the community, and also what the community expects. There seems to be, from reports, more and more members of the community visiting emergency departments rather than going to visit their local GP. And the reason being, maybe they're not satisfied with their local GP, but there's also that need for understanding that sometimes the emergency department is not the best place for them. And that's where I want these lessons to come into play, so that the members of the community are getting that patient-centered care and gaining, the help that they need, but they're also getting redirected into the right place, as well as, easing any kind of issues that the wider health community is going to experience.